Play less stacks will increase win rate. That's a bold statement. Now let me prove you that it's true. So on this YouTube channel we're calculating statistics from tournaments and specifically deck lists. So for example here we have 5 wins, 3 losses and 0 draws. But we're also looking into each individual deck list for each individual card as well. For example here we have Ranger Captain of Eos, we have Opposition Agent, Orcish Bowmaster, 3 different stacks cards, and from that we get a heat map. For example, up there on the red arrow you see 1, that is one deck that had an average win rate from a tournament of 80%, so it basically won like 4 out of 5. And we also get count or quantity of how many stacks card it included, and it's somewhere around just below 25, so something like 23 or 24. So one tournament entry achieved an 80% win rate with 23 to 24 stacks cards inside it, but we can definitely see density much higher around this area right here. Here you can see the darker the area, the more you have, the more bright the area, the less you have. But it's easier to actually see and get a better picture of it from this instead. So here we have once again the win rate, the average win rate that bracket basically got, and the amount, how many you're basically playing. So as you can see here, at the lowest amount of stacks, you're getting the highest potential win rate, and the highest amount of stacks, you're getting the lowest potential win rate. These blue dots here are indicating where the potential win rate actually is. So as you can see here, it doesn't really happen that much from going from 0 to something like 5 stacks cards. For example, the deck I showcased in the beginning of this video contained 3. Ranger Captain, Opposition Agent and Orcish Bowmaster, so that would put it somewhere around here, but it also had a 5 wins, 3 losses, which is pretty good. But once you start to increase more, it starts to drop, and then increasing even more, it drastically drops. So the takeaway here is that you shouldn't include too many stacks cards in general. Cutting down on the amount of stacks card to somewhere around 5 or less might be the most recommended choice. Now if you've been following my YouTube videos, you might have seen this one where I basically did the same thing, looking at various different counterspells in the same kind of manner, and basically found that there is a huge indicator that reducing the amount of counterspells might also increase win rate. This is basically the answer we found inside that video, that including a very low amount up to something like 12 seems to have the same equal outcome of win rate, but when you're starting to increase more, the win rate might start to drop. But something I also said in this video is that we're starting to potentially see a meta change, that decreasing the counterspells might actually be a better thing to do once we have updated the entire sample size of the data of tournaments that I've looked into. However, I don't think that's the case whatsoever when it comes to stacks cards. I truly think that this is something of how it's going to look in the future as well, once the entire data set is starting to become more updated. We have started to see something of a meta shift of Dockside, Mana Crypt and Youth Lotus and Nadu disappearing, but I still don't think that this is going to change. As well as my personal experience is also telling me that the less stacks cards I actually play, the better I'm usually off. But does this mean that we should ignore all stacks cards completely, like play none of them? No, like I showcased, I think that you should play a very low amount and choose key specific ones. For example, Draenei Magistrate is rather good. I would highly recommend people to still play Opposition Agent. Whenever I look into the win rate of people including Opposition Agent inside their decklist, it's usually showcasing a positive result from including it. This isn't really like a typical STAX card, but it's something of a value engine, like a heuristic study, but it's still hurting your opponents, like they can't infinitely cast something because they will die. So it's kinda performing like a STAX card, so I would still recommend it that you have it inside your deck list. But by the way, I've said many times on this YouTube channel that the individual win rate of Talion the Kindly Lord as your commander is a very bad idea. For example, here we have 570 tournament entries with Talion, and it's hitting an average win rate of 18.21. So it's not good as a commander, but usually when I see this, for example inside Tymna and Crom, it's usually performing great. This is usually a very favorable and, in many people's eyes, a very good STAX card, but I actually don't think that it's that great. In my personal experience, I've never seen it do something rather amazing. It's not bad, it's holding people off from trying to win with their Underworld Breaches, and it's definitely the best anti-graveyard STAX card in the format. But still, I don't think it's that good as a lot of people are claiming it to be. But I wouldn't be against people actually playing it, and depending on the meta, it could be good if you're running up against a lot of graveyard-orientated deck lists. I want to start a similar conversation about Orcish Bowmaster. I know that Orcish Bowmaster is a menace inside this format, and a lot of people, or a lot of commanders are dying to it, like Cisse performs really bad when this thing is out, Kinnan, Nayela, and a few other commanders are usually dying when this thing hits the battlefield. However, I've usually not really seen this thing being a cause of victory. It's usually a cause of killing or locking out one or two players, but it's not really winning the match for the Orcish Bowmaster player. Now, I'm not denying that Orcish Bowmaster is winning a game here and there, but in my personal experience, I'm usually seeing the Orcish Bowmaster kill or, once again, lock out a player from basically doing anything with all of his creatures' game plan, and then the Spellslinger deck is figuring out a way to win anyway. Because this is kind of like a group hug card, you could say, together with that heuristic study. You're letting the heuristic study draw cards, you're killing another opponent's creatures, and then the heuristic study wins because that heuristic study player drew cards. But to be fairly honest, those were just my opinions. If you still wanna play Orcish Bowmaster, I think you should, because on the paper and in theory it's usually quite good. And who knows, maybe your player experience is different. Because I want to highlight something very important right here. This is not showing you what STAX cards you should be playing. It's just showing you the amount. It's looking through all of the, I think I have 32,000 tournament entries right now. So yeah, quite a bunch. And then calculating the number of STAX cards they had inside that deck list, and then looking at what win rate that deck list got, and then discovering that the less STAX cards you have, the less of a win rate. Now, in the description below of this video, as always, I have a link to my STAX win rate count, and in this deck list, it's not really a deck list, it's just a card list. You have 163 unique cards that are, in my opinion, the STAX cards that I've found. Now, if you think that I've missed anyone, please send in text and I will add your STAX card that I might have overlooked into my list. But we have 80 creatures, 4 planeswalkers, we have 25 artifacts of various sorts, we have 53 enchantments, and 1, in my opinion, amazing land. And once again, this data that I've showcased in this video is not telling us which one of these are the good ones, it's just showcasing that the amount of these ones you should be including. Now, by the way, for example, there are other commanders that might be including more, for example, or well, can't include too many on the other hand. But for example, Obnixilis Captive Kingpin will auto-include Kedric Parasite as well as the Orcish of Bowmasters. And I guess you could include Immolation Shaman inside Obnixilis as well. So there are other commanders that maybe should be playing more depending on what kind of game plan they have, because for example, Obnixilis is converting these STAX cards into value engines, like Kedric Parasite and Obnixilis is actually quite good. Now sometimes when I'm ending these videos, I'm usually saying that we will know more in the future of sorts, but in this case I'm actually going to say quite firmly that it's starting to be quite proven from the data, and I gotta say now that the sample size that I've got is rather large and, yeah, should be telling a very strong truth that STAX is dead. This is something I've said in previous videos from using experience, but now I can say it even more stronger, that it's not recommended to bring heavy archetype STAX decks to cEDH tournaments, and it probably isn't recommended to play those kind of strategies inside more tabletop casual cEDH games as well. This could of course change if Wizards of the Coast would accidentally print better STAX cards that would improve the game plans that they bring, but that would just mean that you're playing those good cards instead of playing the STAX archetype. So the takeaway of this is that STAX cards aren't bad just because they're STAX, it's that there are a very few STAX cards that are considered good, but you should stay away from the rather big collective of the entire archetype game plan. I hope you got something out of my enormous Staxy rambling. In any case guys, take care, and I'll bring you more updates on more cEDH tournaments and the data we can learn from them.